K9 German Shepherd saves soldier from flaming wreck. Then this happens. The explosion lit up the night, like lightning on a deserted stretch of highway outside El Paso. A military Humvee lay upside down, its wheels still spinning, fire licking its sides, and smoke billowing into the dark Texas sky. Inside, a young soldier was unconscious, blood trickling down his temple, his leg crushed, just seconds away from death. Then from the shadows came a shape, 4 legs, burning eyes, a battered service, vest barely clinging to its side. Rex, the K9 German Shepherd. He had been thrown from the vehicle, broken and bruised, but not beaten. When he saw his partner trapped inside the inferno, he didn't hesitate. Not for pain, not for fire, not for death. What happened next would leave the paramedics speechless, shake the hearts of every witness, and spark a movement across the country. Rex didn't just save his handler's life, he reminded everyone what loyalty really looks like. It was supposed to be a routine transport. Sergeant Kyle Monroe, a 27-year-old Army mechanic stationed at Fort Bliss, was returning from a supply drop near the border. Riding with him in the passenger seat wasn't another soldier but Rex, his assigned K9 partner, a 5-year-old German Shepherd trained in explosives detection. Rex had saved lives in Afghanistan and had earned his place as both comrade and companion. Kyle loved Rex more than he cared to admit. Kyle wasn't a man of many words, but with Rex, words weren't needed. The dog knew how Kyle breathed when he was anxious, how he clenched his jaw before remembering something he didn't want to feel. Rex never asked questions. He just stayed close. It was 11:38 p.m. The road stretched like a ribbon of ink through the desert. Kyle was tired, too tired. He turned up the radio to stay awake as a country song hummed in the background. Rex sat alert, eyes scanning the horizon. Then everything happened at once. A sharp swerve, a blinding flash, a deafening crack. The Humvee slammed into a dip in the road, tires losing traction. It rolled once, then again, metal screaming as it flipped, finally landing on its roof with a brutal shattering impact. Inside, Kyle's head hit the dashboard. He slumped forward, unconscious, blood trickling from his scalp, his leg pinned beneath the crumpled steering column. Flames began at the engine, small at first, but hungry for fuel, hungry for life. Rex had been thrown from the vehicle on the second roll. He hit the ground hard, yelping as his ribs slammed into the dry earth. For a moment, he didn't move. Dust clouded his eyes, his side burned, his ears rang. But then he heard it, Kyle's heartbeat, faint and uneven. The fire crackled louder. Rex staggered to his feet. Pain shot through his front leg. He limped toward the wreck. The Humvee was upside down, windows shattered, smoke rising in black plumes. The heat was unbearable, but Rex pushed forward, one paw, then another. His pads burned, his lungs ached. He crawled through the smashed side window, glass cutting into his flank. Kyle was still alive, his chest barely rising beneath the pressure of twisted metal. Rex whined, nudging his handler's face with his nose. No response. He barked sharp, loud, desperate. Nothing. Rex grabbed the collar of Kyle's vest in his teeth and pulled. It was no use. His leg was stuck. Rex let out a low growl and lunged again, biting at the straps of the seatbelt, yanking them with all the strength his battered body had left. The flames danced closer. Something exploded near the front tire. Rex didn't flinch. He tugged and tugged until finally, something gave way. Kyle's body slid slightly. The weight shifted. Rex lunged again, biting down on the fabric near Kyle's shoulder and dragging him inch by inch toward the shattered window. Smoke filled the cabin. A second explosion rocked the frame. The roof began to collapse. Just as the fire kissed the inside edge of the cabin, Rex pulled Kyle through. They tumbled out together, the dog collapsing on top of the soldier as the entire vehicle erupted behind them. The blast lit up the desert for miles. When the dust finally settled, there they were, a broken soldier and the dog who refused to leave him behind. A trucker saw the fireball from the highway and called 911. When paramedics arrived, they found Rex lying protectively over Kyle's chest, his nose pressed gently to the man's jawline, as if willing him to breathe. Kyle's pulse was faint, but it was there. So was Rex, covered in ash, burned but alive, waiting. Because in his heart, Rex only had one mission left: bring his soldier home. When the ambulance door slammed shut, Rex tried to jump in, bloodied and limping. He lunged toward the back of the vehicle with surprising strength. One EMT turned around, startled. He's not going to make it through another hour, the man muttered, gesturing at the German Shepherd's scorched fur, his torn paw pads. But Rex didn't care. Inside the ambulance, Kyle was hooked to oxygen and unconscious. Rex knew deep in the part of him that no training could define, that he couldn't let his partner go alone. Another EMT stepped between them. He's a military working dog. He's not allowed in transport. Rex growled low and guttural, not a threat, but a protest. Lieutenant Maria Ortiz, the first officer on scene and a former K-9 handler herself, crouched beside Rex and put a hand gently on his muzzle. "Easy boy," she whispered. "He's safe now. You did it." But Rex didn't move. His body shook, not just from injury, but from something deeper, refusal. Refusal to be left behind, to break the bond. Maria looked into his eyes and saw something there. A plea, not just a dog waiting for orders, but a soul demanding not to be separated. She turned to the EMT. "Let him ride. If that man wakes up, he's going to need to see that dog." After a pause, the EMT nodded. "Front seat only. If he starts crashing, we can't risk interference." Maria opened the passenger door. "Come on, hero." Rex hesitated, then climbed in slowly, every step a struggle. But once inside, he turned his head toward the back where Kyle lay and stayed perfectly still. The ambulance raced toward the trauma center, sirens piercing the night. At El Paso Regional Medical, doctors fought to stabilize Kyle. Broken femur, cracked ribs, internal bleeding. His vitals spiked, dropped, then leveled again in a roller coaster of survival. Rex lay outside the ER doors, refusing to move. Nurses brought him water, and a medic cleaned the blood from his coat, but no one could coax him away. He waited. Hours passed, then morning came. Inside, Kyle stirred. His eyes fluttered open slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening under the harsh hospital lights. He whispered, "Rex." The nurse beside him paused. "Who's Rex?" Kyle blinked hard. "My dog." The nurse smiled. "He's here. He didn't leave you." Kyle tried to sit up, but pain cracked through his chest. "Let me see him. You're not stable yet. Let me see him." The nurse sighed, touched her radio, and said something quietly. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Rex limped in, bandaged and slow. The nurse guided him gently, but he didn't need direction. He found Kyle in a second. The moment their eyes met, something shifted in the room. The machine still beeped, the force still dripped, but suddenly, the only thing that mattered was that the soldier and the dog had found each other again. Rex let out a soft whine, laid his head on the edge of the bed, and closed his eyes. Kyle reached down and touched his ears. "You stayed," he whispered. Rex didn't move. He didn't have to. The connection said it all. Over the next 2 days, the hospital allowed Rex to visit twice more. Each time, Kyle's vitals improved. The staff started calling him the therapy dog, who earned the title. But not everyone was thrilled. A representative from the Army K-9 division arrived on the 3rd day, wearing a pressed uniform and carrying a clipboard. His tone was cold. "Rex is government property. Once he's stable, he'll be returned to active duty or reassigned." Kyle's jaw tightened. "He saved my life. He's still deployable. I won't let you take him." "Sergeant, the paperwork doesn't care about loyalty. Rules are rules." Kyle looked at Rex, then back at the officer. Then maybe it's time someone broke them. And just like that, the real fight began. The discharge papers came 2 weeks later. Kyle was wheeled out of El Paso Regional with a titanium rod in his leg, a long scar trailing his left side, and a heart heavier than any of it. He wasn't going home. He was going to war with the very system he had served. The Army had transported Rex to an evaluation facility on the edge of the base. Kyle hadn't been allowed to say goodbye. "Too emotional," the officer had said. "These transitions are easier if the handler lets go." But Kyle wasn't letting go. He spent the first 3 days at the recovery barracks making calls, writing appeals, and demanding meetings. His commander sympathized but shrugged. "It's regulation, Monroe. If the dog's fit for duty, he rotates. We need him. He's not a weapon," Kyle said. "He's family." The base psychologist nodded. "That may be true, but the Army doesn't see it that way." Meanwhile, Rex sat in a cage, a clean one, with food and care, but no voice. He knew no hand that smelled like safety. Every time a door opened, his ears perked, his tail lifted, then dropped again. He didn't eat much. He didn't bark. He just waited, guarding memories no one could see. Back in the barracks, Kyle limped down the hall with a cane and sat at his laptop, scrolling through photos of Rex, from their first day in Afghanistan, from training in New Mexico, from the mission where Rex had sniffed out a buried explosive and saved 3 lives. Kyle remembered the moment he knew the dog was different, not just brave, but human in his own way. It had been after an IED hit a nearby unit. Rex didn't bark or panic. He found a young soldier crying under rubble and sat beside him, resting his head on the boy's chest until medics arrived. Kyle had seen men freeze in fear. Rex never had. That night, Kyle wrote a letter, not to the army, but to the people. He posted it online with the title, "My dog saved me. Now I'm fighting to save him." The letter went viral in under 48 hours. Thousands of comments poured in: veterans, civilians, animal lovers, people who had never served, but knew what it meant to love something with 4 legs and a silent soul. News outlets picked it up. CNN called, then Fox. A veteran-run nonprofit within a week. Kyle was on the morning news, his cane leaning against the chair, the scar on his face barely healed. "I didn't come here to bash the army," he said. "I'm proud of my service. But Rex isn't a gun. He's not gear. He's a life. And he didn't stop being a soldier when we came home." That afternoon, the facility received over 3,000 calls demanding Rex's release. Still, the military pushed back. Rex was a government asset. Kyle didn't care. He filed a formal adoption request. When it was denied, he appealed again and again. Finally, a young legal officer on base, Captain Alyssa Green, called him in. "There's a clause," she said, closing the door behind her. "It's buried in old protocol. If the dog is deemed emotionally bonded beyond reassignment, if separation causes measurable distress, he can be retired early." Kyle raised an eyebrow. "Who makes that decision?" "We do." 3 days later, Kyle walked into the evaluation room on crutches. Rex was sitting in the corner. The moment he saw Kyle, he leapt to his feet, tail wagging, whining. Rex limped toward him, but still tried to move. Kyle dropped his crutches and fell to his knees. Rex barreled into his chest. It wasn't just a reunion, it was proof. Captain Green turned to the evaluator. "Measurable distress?" The evaluator didn't even blink. "Undeniable." And just like that, Rex was free. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was going home. Kyle's home wasn't much to look at. A small one-story on the outskirts of Los Cusis, with a chain-link fence, a dented truck in the driveway, and a porch swing that creaked when the wind blew too hard. But to Rex, it was paradise. No cages, no barking kennels, no strangers in uniform. Just Kyle, the one scent that meant safety, the one heartbeat he would follow anywhere. Kyle transformed the guest room into Rex's space. New bed, food station, shelves filled with toys he never played with, but guarded like gold. Rex followed him everywhere. If Kyle stood, Rex stood. If Kyle sat, Rex sat. If Kyle woke up with sweat on his brow and ghosts in his dreams, Rex would jump onto the bed, curl into his side, and wait for his breathing to slow. For all their joy, the adjustment wasn't simple. Kyle limped more than he let on. He slept during the day and stared at the ceiling at night. Crowds made his hands shake. Loud noises made him freeze. Rex noticed everything. One evening, Kyle was working on a busted motorcycle in the garage when a car backfired down the street. The sound split the air like a rifle. Kyle dropped the wrench. His whole body tensed. Breath caught. He crouched behind the workbench. Instinctively, his heart pounded like mortar fire. But it was Rex who broke through the haze. The German shepherd walked slowly over, nosed his shoulder, then sat, calm, still, present, grounding him. Kyle let out a long breath and leaned back against the wall. "You still on duty, huh?" he whispered. Rex licked his arm, as if to say, "Always." As weeks passed, their bond only deepened. Kyle began speaking at veteran events, telling Rex a story, not as a fairy tale, but as a reality. A story of survival, of wounds that don't bleed, of loyalty that doesn't need words. At one small-town VFW, an older vet approached him after a speech, tears in his eyes. "I lost my partner in '71, he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never got to say goodbye." Kyle nodded, understanding the pain in the man's eyes. "Mine almost got taken too," he said, looking down at Rex, who stood by his side, silent and noble, "but he held on long enough for me to fight back." The crowd listened quietly as Rex stood beside Kyle, embodying the essence of loyalty. Donations poured in for military K-9 retirement care. One woman even offered to build a memorial sculpture of Rex for the local park, but Kyle politely declined. "He's not done living," he said. But it wasn't just public attention that grew. Something in Kyle began to shift. He started sleeping better, stopped needing the cane, laughed sometimes without meaning to. It wasn't that Rex healed him. It was that Rex reminded him he wasn't broken beyond repair. One Sunday afternoon, Kyle sat on the back porch, the sun setting behind the mountains. Rex lay at his feet, a soft breeze rustling the mesquite trees. For the first time in years, peace didn't feel like something borrowed. It felt real. Then his phone buzzed. It was Captain Alyssa Green. "You might want to see this," she said, her voice unusually tense. "Check your email." Kyle opened the email. It was an article from a national magazine. The title read, the K-9 who brought his soldier back. The article featured photos of Rex dragging Kyle from the wreck, screenshots of Kyle's viral letter, and quotes from veterans who said the story had saved them from doing something irreversible. Kyle stared at the screen, stunned. Then he looked down at Rex, who lay beside him. "You're not just my dog," Kyle whispered. "You're everybody's now." Rex lifted his head and blinked contentedly as the stars came out. Kyle leaned back and closed his eyes. Home wasn't quiet, not really, but it was safe. And for two souls who'd walked through fire, that was enough. 3 months had passed since Rex had officially retired. Kyle's limp was barely noticeable now, though he still carried pain in places a doctor couldn't reach. Most mornings began the same way: black coffee, a walk around the neighborhood with Rex, and a few quiet hours on the back porch with the dog's head resting on his foot. Their rhythm was simple, sacred. Then the phone rang. It was Captain Alyssa Green again. "Sorry to bother you," she said, her voice unusually tense. "But we've got a situation, and it concerns Rex." Kyle straightened in his chair. "What kind of situation?" "There was a bombing attempt in Phoenix this morning," Alyssa explained. "A K-9 unit got injured trying to prevent it. They stopped the worst of it, but the handler didn't make it." Kyle exhaled sharply. "Damn," Alyssa continued. "The explosive was traced to a new group. Advanced stuff. Homemade but sophisticated. They left notes, threats. They're targeting vets and their families. We have intel that Rex's name, your name, was in their files." Kyle stood, his knuckles white around the phone. "How?" "We're still piecing that together. But you and Rex were part of an operation 2 years ago in Kandahar. Someone connected to that mission is likely behind this." Kyle glanced at Rex, who lay nearby, ears twitching. "You're saying we're targets?" Alyssa paused. "Yes." Kyle swallowed. "So what are you asking?" Alyssa hesitated. "We want Rex to help us identify the scent markers from the Phoenix scene. Just a few hours in a controlled environment, then he comes home." Kyle turned his gaze to the dog. Rex was watching him, as if he knew his name had just been spoken on the wire. "He's not active duty anymore," Kyle said softly. "He's earned rest." "I know, but we're short on time. He may be the only one trained on that compound signature." He sniffed it in Kabul. "No one else in the system has." Kyle closed his eyes. "Let me ask him." The line went quiet. Kyle crouched beside Rex, rubbing the scar behind his ear. "You hear all that, buddy?" he whispered. Rex tilted his head, then licked Kyle's palm. "You up for one more?" Kyle asked. Rex stood, no hesitation. The next morning, they arrived at the Phoenix field office. Rex wore his vest again, the same one scorched from the wreck, but now repaired and refitted. As Kyle buckled the strap beneath his chest, something stirred inside him. Not pride, not fear, something older than both, trust. Sergeant Emily Davis, the bomb unit's lead technician, briefed them quickly. "We've recreated the scent markers from the scene. It's a mix of acetone, nitrate, and an unknown oil compound. We're hoping Rex will recognize the trace." The room went still as Kyle gave the command. "Search." Rex moved like he'd never stopped working. Down the hall, nose to the floor, then circling the test zone. His body stiffened, a growl rising in his throat. He sat, indicating a match. Emily turned to Kyle. "That's it." They took swabs and scanned for deeper compounds. But it wasn't just the scent that mattered. It was what Rex did next. He followed the trail to the building's ventilation system and barked twice. The tech team ran tests. Minutes later, they confirmed it. A second device had been planted in the ductwork. They evacuated the building, no injuries. All thanks to Rex once again. That evening, back at the motel, Kyle sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Rex curled up near the door. "You saved lives today," he said. Rex didn't respond. He just sighed, tired but calm. Kyle looked down at his hands. "They're going to want you again. More missions, more risks." He leaned back. "But I'm not giving you up." As the news played in the background, reporting on the evacuation and the prevented attack, Kyle muted the TV and whispered, "They may own the uniform, but they don't own you." Outside, the desert wind whistled softly through the parking lot. Rex lifted his head and looked at Kyle. In his eyes, Kyle saw the truth. Rex didn't care about orders or duty. He cared about him, and he always would. They flew home 2 days later, the flight quiet, military chartered. The same Department of Defense that had once refused to acknowledge Rex's worth beyond the battlefield now treated him like a living legend. But Kyle wasn't impressed by the fanfare. He kept one hand on Rex's collar the entire ride, as if to say, "He's not yours anymore." Waiting at the tarmac in Los Cruces was a surprise. Local media, a few high-ranking officers, and a podium draped in flags. A ceremony, Captain Alyssa Green approached with a clipboard and a smile. "You don't have to speak," she said gently. But they insisted. Rex saved a federal building and 24 lives. Kyle looked down at Rex, who sat beside the podium, wearing a new medal on his collar. His tail wagged once, then settled, always calm in a storm. "I'll say something," Kyle replied. An hour later, under the New Mexico sun, Kyle stood before a small crowd, his leg aching and his heart beating faster than he wanted it to. But he held the mic steady. "I've worn the uniform," he began, "and I've seen what war does to people and to dogs." He glanced at Rex, who sat beside him, calm and noble. This dog doesn't know what the news says about him. He doesn't know about medals or politics. He only knows what it means to stay. The crowd listened silently. When my vehicle exploded, Rex didn't run. When I couldn't walk, he dragged me. When I couldn't sleep, he stayed awake with me. And when they told me he wasn't mine to keep, he waited until I fought to make him family. He paused. Rex isn't just a hero. He's proof that loyalty has no uniform, no rank, just heart. The crowd erupted in applause. Later, a general stepped forward with a formal document. "Sergeant Monroe, we'd like to offer Rex an honorary designation, K9 Emeritus, with full retirement benefits and ceremonial status. He'll never be reassigned, and he'll be recognized for his service in perpetuity." Kyle blinked in surprise. "You're giving him a pension?" The general smiled. "It's symbolic, but yes, and a burial site at Arlington, if ever needed." Kyle looked at Rex. He's not going anywhere for a long time. That night, Kyle sat on the porch again, his leg up, ice on his knee. Rex lay beside him, the metal glinting softly in the moonlight. "Feels strange," Kyle murmured. "They finally see you." Rex nudged his hand. "But here's the thing," Kyle said. "They're going to call again. Maybe not tomorrow, but they will, because you're still the best. And they'll say it's just one more job, just one more mission." He fell silent, then quietly asked, "What if I say yes?" Rex stared at him, unmoving. "What if we go back for just one more?" Kyle whispered, "Not because they want us, but because someone out there needs us." Rex's ears perked, and he sat up straighter, sensing something shifting. Kyle rubbed his neck. "Not today, not soon, but maybe someday." Inside the house, a photo frame set on the mantel showed a younger Kyle and Rex in the desert, both sunburned, both dust-covered, both grinning, one with teeth, the other with eyes. Kyle whispered, "You're free now, but we can still choose." Rex rested his head on Kyle's lap, content, and in that moment Kyle knew they didn't have to be on the front lines to be useful. Every story they told, every life they touched, just by walking into a room together, that was their mission now. Not combat, not orders, but healing side by side. No leash needed, just love. A year later, Kyle and Rex stood at the entrance of a new center built in their honor, the Monroe and Rex Foundation, dedicated to helping retired canines and veterans heal together. Children ran across the grass, veterans laughed beside their beds, and families who had once felt forgotten now found purpose again. Rex, now grayer around the muzzle, still walked with his signature strength. He was no longer a soldier, no longer a tool of war. He was a beacon, a living reminder that survival isn't just about what you endure. It's about who stands beside you when everything burns. Kyle knelt beside him during the ribbon cutting. He whispered, "We made it, partner." Rex looked up at him, eyes steady. No war, no fire, just peace, and the bond that saved them both. In a heart-stopping story of courage and unwavering loyalty, Rex, a German Shepherd K9, risks everything to save his handler, Sergeant Kyle Monroe, after a fiery explosion in the desert. Thrown from the wreckage of a military Humvee, Rex refuses to leave his partner behind, pulling him from the flames and ensuring he makes it out alive. Their bond is tested by the military's strict rules, but Kyle fights to keep Rex by his side, knowing the dog isn't just a hero but family. This is the story of how a soldier and his dog not only saved each other's lives, but fought together for their place in the world. Watch as Rex's story touches hearts across the country, from a life-threatening rescue to a legal battle for the dog who refused to quit. Discover how a bond forged in war became the beacon of loyalty, proving that true heroes walk on four legs, and the greatest mission is healing together. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this incredible story of courage, sacrifice, and love.